All right, guys, we've got Unity happening. You have a basic idea of what all the tabs do at various places around the Unity editor here. So let's start making a character. We're going to do that by going over to the Hierarchy tab and creating a new game object. So everything that's going to be in our game is going to be a game object. And so it's anything that's actually in the game world is going to be in this list over here. And we're going to be able to see it in the scene window here. So I'm going to go over here. We can create our game object by going create up here, or we could do it another way by just right-clicking in the empty space here of the hierarchy. I'm used to doing it where I right-click here. It doesn't matter. There's about 5 or 10 ways to do almost everything in Unity. So yeah, I usually right-click out here, but you could just as easily go to the Create button up here. So we're going to create a 3D object to go into our level, and we're going to create this capsule shape. Normally, when you're making a really fancy and advanced game, you're not going to use just a capsule in the game. You're going to import a really complex shape, something that looks like a human or a chair or a car. Unity doesn't give us the ability, at least Unity 2018 up here, doesn't give us the ability to sculpt this. It just gives us access to a number of what we call native shapes. So cube, sphere, capsule, cylinder, a plane, and a couple of more interesting things. We've got stuff like a tree and the terrain tool, a quad. So we're not going to talk about those a whole lot. For this game, we're going to stick to your basic shapes. So cube, sphere, capsule, cylinder, a plane. That's your basic math shapes kind of thing. So this capsule is what we're going to be dealing with. Now, when we click on the capsule in the Hierarchy tab, notice that over here in the inspector, we have all of the details relating to the capsule. It's separated into several different components. So we have the transform component at the top. We've got a mesh filter, a mesh renderer. We've got a capsule collider, and we can add more components to it. So this thing is actually made up of a lot of different parts, even though it just looks like it's just a shape. There's actually a lot going on under the hood so that the game can actually do things with it, can sense when it bumps into something, knows how to destroy it or resize it or any of those kinds of things. So for example, the transform component up here, it has a position, and that is on the X, Y, and Z axis. And we could actually change where it's positioned in the game world here. Right now it's positioned at 0, 0, 0, which is mathematically the center of our universe, right? Now I can type a different number in here, but I also could just go to the letter X where it says position, and I can grab that with the mouse and just drag it back and forth, and you can see it's moving that capsule back and forth in our scene. For right now, I'm just going to leave it at the center, so I'm just going to wipe out this number here. I'm just going to type a 0 in, and we're back to where we started. Okay. Now I want to show you something, so I'm actually going to just delete this capsule. I'm going to come over here and right-click. Let's see. Let's select it. I'm going to right-click on it, and we have not only things that we could do. I'm just going to delete this. Okay. Now, let's pick the main camera up here. Notice it's this camera is going to be responsible for what we actually see in our game. So right now in the scene view, we're not looking at the same thing that the player is going to see when the game plays on their screen. So if I click on the game tab, this is what the player would see at the moment. Right now, the position of the camera is not at 0, 0, 0. It's kind of, off a little bit, which is fine. That's perfect. Now I'm going to make sure that I've clicked on the camera over here. It's what's selected in my list of game objects here in the hierarchy menu. And I'm going to right-click right on the camera, and then I'm going to create my 3D capsule, same as I did before. Notice it's not in the same place where it was before. If we look at the position, it says 0, 0, 0. That sounds like the same place. But if you check the actual list over here in the hierarchy, our capsule is inside the camera. this is the parent-child relationship that you are going to have to be really familiar with. So right now, the capsule is a child object of the main camera, and the main camera is the parent game object of the capsule. So right now, the capsule is not measuring whether it's at 0, 0, 0, the center of the universe. It's actually measuring 0, 0, 0 at the center of the main camera. The main camera is not at the center of the universe at the moment. It's got a little bit of an off position, just a couple numbers. So we don't want our capsule actually connected to the main camera. That's not how we're going to do this. So I'm going to grab the capsule with my mouse here, and I'm just going to drag it, pull it off, and drop it in the list down here. And now that it's no longer relying on the main camera to be its universe, it's relying on the entire world space to be its universe. And so now we can see it's actually positioned off in exactly the same place where the camera was. So we don't really want that to be off of there. We could actually type 0, 0, 0 in here. But I want to show you a trick here. Re-expand that. So I'm gonna grab, I need you to be able to see this here. So up in the upper right-hand corner of the transform component here, I'm actually going to be able to grab this gear right here, just click on it, and I can reset the transform. That is going to put the default numbers in for X, Y, and Z on the position, on the rotation, and on the scale. So that's a handy thing for everybody to know about. You can always reset the transform, and it'll all go back to defaults right there without having to type tons of stuff. Okay. Let's see, where are we? We have our character right now, except that it doesn't really look like anything. So what I want to do is kind of add a couple more of those native shapes and start to build this thing into, I don't know, maybe a little cartoon character looking guy. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to add another 3D object. Let's have a sphere. So what I want to do is make some eyes for this guy. Sphere is a ball shape. So yeah, that ought to look like an eyeball. So there's my sphere. And you might notice here that I don't actually see anything. That's because the capsule is at 0, 0, 0 position, and the sphere is also at 0, 0, 0 position. So we can't even see what's going on. The sphere is inside of this thing. So I'm gonna grab one of these arrows. I could just as easily put like, for example, I could grab this Z axis up here, which is my blue color. It shows that right here, and drag it off to the side. I could do that by grabbing this arrow as well. So if I grab the arrow, it doesn't move on the up and down axis or in the side to side X axis either. So I'm just pulling the forward and back Z axis right now. Okay, so that's way too big to be an eyeball for this thing. So what I'm going to do is come up here to the scale, and I'm going to change it. So if something is 1 times as big as itself, then that's normal sized. So what we're going to do is make this smaller. Like I said cartoon, so maybe really big eyes. Let's go like 0.5. Let's make this not as big as the character, but maybe half as big. So I'm going to just type in, to be precise here, 0.5 to all these different places. And that is our little eyeball. So I can back this into the character a little bit and maybe pull it upwards some. So that looks kind of okay. Is that an eyeball? Maybe. Okay, so it's a little bit hard to actually see what I'm doing here. So let's talk, before we continue any further, about how you can manipulate what you're looking at right here. So the first thing that you're going to be able to do is take your mouse and just, if you've got a scroll wheel in the middle, that is the best thing in the world. So you can just scroll wheel closer, scroll wheel farther out to get a bird's eye view of everything that's going on. So that's kind of an important thing. Next, most important thing here is that we've got a series of tools up here in the upper left-hand corner. The first one is the hand tool, and that's going to allow you to click on the screen and sort of drag back and forth. So you can slide I don't know. It feels like you're sliding the world across in front of the camera. I suppose maybe what you're actually doing is sliding your camera back and forth across the world. But one way or the other, it repositions what you can see here. So that's pretty cool. But honestly, I don't know anybody that uses the move tool very much. These other tools are for manipulating the game object as opposed to manipulating where we are positioned as the camera here. The best way to move around, not using the move tool here, is to simply take your mouse and right click. Notice that we suddenly get this eyeball and we see what looks like a stack of 4 keys positioned like our arrow keys, right? Or like WASD if you're used to moving around in a game with WASD keys. When you right click in here, you can just drag the mouse back and forth, and that actually turns your camera. You can look up, down, side to side. It doesn't change where the camera is, so I can't go with this exact thing. I can't walk around to the other side of my character and have a look at the back side of it, but I can look off to, you know, the horizon there or whatever. So if he had a long spear or something like that that was going off the side, I could actually turn the camera and have a look at that. Okay, now when you're holding the right mouse click there, you actually can use WASD to move the camera. So this is pretty straightforward. W zooms you in, same as with the scroll wheel. S zooms you out. So that's the same kind of thing like you would experience in a first-person shooter game. W moves you forward, S moves you back. A and D are going to move you side to side. I'm still holding the right mouse button while I do this. As soon as I release it, those keys don't do that anymore. Right mouse button, and now I'm back in action here. So I can actually, I can sort of rotate myself with the mouse and slide sideways with WASD all at the same time. So it's very easy once you get used to it to reposition yourself so that you can see what you need to see here in the scene view. The other keys that you need to know about, notice I haven't actually moved upwards or downwards relation to this. I haven't seen the underside of this thing, so maybe he's got shoes down there I need to have a look at. So again, right click, and then I'm going to use the Q and E keys to move down and up. So I've got W and S for forward and back. I've got A and D for side to side, and I've got Q and E for up and down. So yeah, get used to just right clicking out here in the empty space of the scene view and using the keys and panning around with your mouse to be able to see what you want. Now, that said, I want to, since I'm positioning eyeballs on this guy and kind of getting things in very precise places, I want to have a really precise side-on view of what I'm looking at here. And that's, I don't know, I've kind of got it lined up okay, but it's not perfect. And that's where, in a situation like this, when you want a perfect no angle on your camera kind of look at something, then you can go to the this thing is called, what is this called? I think it's just called the scene gizmo. So basically you've got as you rotate your camera, it rotates to show you sort of what direction you're pointed, just as far as the camera showing you what's in the scene view here. So you can click on the different colors and it will take you to different sides for a perfect side-on view. I'm looking, since I clicked on the X, I'm looking perfectly to the side of nothing, actually. So since I can't even see my game object anymore, I can click on it over here, and if I double-click on it, it moves my camera to perfectly to the side where I can see this thing. So now I have a perfect side view because I'm still positioned where I use the scene gizmo here to get me looking one of the cardinal directions. I'm looking straight down the x-axis, and when I double click on this capsule, then it positions me so that the capsule is directly in front of me. So I can see very clearly how far out in front the sphere is sticking out through the side of the capsule. I think I actually want to rotate to the front so that I can see a little bit better. So I don't want this guy to just be one eyeball here. I think I'm gonna pull this off to the side a little bit, and let's get sort of an eyeball kind of a vibe happening here. So let's back that in. I'm going to drag that Z back just a little bit. I want less of the eyeball sticking out. That's probably fine. Okay, that could be an eyeball. Now, what I want to do is I want to make another eyeball. And what I don't want to have to do is go sliding the thing around and trying to get it lined up exactly how this one is lined up so that they're perfect. I don't want one eye slightly higher than the other or slightly bigger than the other. So the easiest thing that I can do here is just go over to my game object in the hierarchy list and right click and duplicate the thing. Now there's two. One is called sphere, one's called sphere 1, and they're in exactly the same place, which is why we still only see one. Now I can see that it's positioned slightly off to one side on the x-axis. And what I want is I want one eye to stay exactly there, side to side wise, and I want the other one to sort of mirror image across to the other. Now, since our capsule is positioned right in the center of the universe, all I have to do is go to the other side of the center, which means I'm positioned at 0.18 at the moment. All I have to do is add a negative sign to that. I'm just going to drop a minus in front of that number. And that moves that second one, sphere 1, the duplicate, gets moved across. And so now we've got ourselves something that looks like a pair of eyes. This is starting to look like a little cartoon guy with eyes.